Okay, we're going to do lesson 2.1 today, which is dealing with numbers and positive and negative numbers and numbers on a real number line, okay? So the first example here is they give me two sets of numbers, and they want me to graph these numbers on a number line. Now, we can do both of these problems on the same number line. So if you want to go ahead and copy a number line down from -5 to +5. Okay, so when I use this number line here, make sure when you write a number line, you always start with the smallest number on the left and go to the largest number on the right. You never want to do a number line where you go from bigger to smaller. So I'd never write a number line like 10, 9, 8, 7, and go that way. Okay, you always want to go smallest to biggest. So make sure you know whenever you write a number line, we go smallest to biggest, okay? Because that's the way we read, left to right. So we go in increasing order. So what they want me to do is they want me to graph each of these numbers on the number line so that I can easily see which one's going to be bigger and which one's going to be smaller. Because we obviously know the farther to the left it is, the smaller it is. The farther to the right it is, the larger it is. And this is what we call our origin, which is 0 here. So normally where our number line starts, everything to the left of the 0 is smaller than 0. Everything to the right of the 0 is larger than 0. Okay? So let's plot our first point, -1 3/4. Now, a lot of people go, oh, okay, since it's a fraction, it needs to go in between 0 and -1. No, look at the whole number. I have a -1 here. So I'm going to go to -1 on my number line, and then it's even bigger than -1. It's -1 3/4. So then I go 3/4 of the way to -2. Again, now your point is not going to be perfectly at -1 3/4. That's okay. I understand that. Get it as close as you can. Okay? And then also they want me to plot the point 2.7. So I know 2 is a positive number, so I go to 2. And then I go over another 0.7, which is going to be close to about right there. Now, I can easily see which number is smaller and which number is bigger, because I know the one that's farthest to the left is smaller. And it's pretty easy to tell because one of my numbers is negative and one is positive. And no matter what, a negative number is always smaller than a positive number. Okay? But let's look at this next example. Example B. We have -5. Well, that's a pretty easy one to find. I just go to -5 on my number line and plot my point. And -1/2. Now, this is where a lot of people make the mistake is they go, okay, -1/2 in between my -1 and 2. No, -1/2 is in between 0 and -1. Make sure, because you know that it's not 0 and it's not quite a whole number, -1, so it has to go in between. And you would have thought, well, I thought 1/2 is smaller than 5. It is when it's positive. But remember, whenever you have negative numbers, the bigger the number is, the actual smaller it is. So, like -5 would be bigger than -6. -6 is less than -5. Okay, does that make sense? So the bigger the number is when it's negative, the smaller it actually is. All right? All right, example number 2. We've got these two sets of numbers here, and they want us to graph it on the number line and then write an inequality to compare the numbers. Who can tell me what's an inequality? We just got finished learning about those. What is an inequality? Anybody remember? It's a greater than or less than sign. So they just want me to use greater than or less than sign. We're going to actually use both of them, okay? So, let's graph this first number, -3/2. Now, let me tell you a really easy way. It's much easier for you to change this to a mixed number, so you can graph it instead of going, okay, 3 out of 2, that's more than 1, so it's just easier, just change it to a mixed number. So how would I write this as a mixed number? What would it be? What's -3/2 as a mixed number, Asia? Very good. -1.5. Okay, and if you're like, I don't know how she did that, this is how you do it. I say, how many times can 2 go into 3? That would be 1 time. That's your whole number. with 1 left over. That becomes my new numerator, and I keep my denominator. And then I have negative 1/2. All right, so let's plot these points, and then I'm going to write 2 inequalities to display them. So negative 1/2 goes here, negative 1/2 goes here. So if I were to write this as an inequality, negative 1 1/2 is what than 1/2? Is it less than or greater than? Is negative 1 1/2 less than negative 1/2 or greater than? Who knows? Less than. Very good. Okay, now they want me to write 2 inequalities. So I've got to flip it around and use the greater than sign. So what is greater than? Negative 1/2 is greater than negative 1 1/2. And that's exactly how you would write 2 inequalities. Okay? Now let's do the next one. This one's a little more complicated because I look and I go, these fractions, how do I know 7 out of 16 and 5 out of 8? What am I going to do here? All right? Easiest way for me to tell you to do it, get a common denominator. Then it's really simple. I see exactly what I do. But before I can get a common denominator, I need to change these into improper fractions. So I say 16 times 1 is 16, plus 7 is 23 out of 16. 1 times 8 is 8, plus 5 is 13 over 8. So I need to get a common denominator. What would a good common denominator be? 16, exactly. So I need to multiply this by 2. So I've got 23 over 16 and 26 over 16. So which one, and I can't forget, these are both negative. Both negative. I forgot to write that over here. Okay. So is 23 over 16 greater than or less than 26 over 16? Greater than, exactly, because remember, the bigger the number when it's negative, the smaller it actually is. So let's flip that around and use our other sign. I would write negative 26 over 16 is less than negative 23 over 16. And now let's graph these. I'm going to go back to these mixed numbers here to graph because those will be easier to figure out where they are. Use a different color. So negative 1 and 7 over 16. So I'm going to go to negative 1 and then 7 over 16. That's a little over half. So I'm going to guess and go right about there. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just put it where you think it goes. Okay. And then negative 1 and 5/8. We know that that one was smaller. So it's going to be just a little bit farther that way. All right. Okay, last example that we're going to cover today is example 3. They want us to write the following numbers in increasing order. Graph those numbers on a number line. If I graph these on a number line, it's really easy for me to see smallest to biggest because I should be able to see on my number line left to right as smallest to biggest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use a different color for each number so it's easy for me to see, and I'll go ahead and underline these. All right, so we're going to graph each of these on a number line and then write them from smallest to biggest. Okay? The first number that I have, negative 1.5. Where is that point going to go? In between which numbers? Who can tell me? Very good. Negative 1 and negative 2. Okay? 1/3. Where is 1/3 going to go? First of all, it's positive, so I know it has to be on this side of the 0. And 1/3, am I going to go in between like the 1 and the 3, or how would I do that?
Go a little bit from the 1.
exact, not in front of the 1, in front of the 0, because it's not quite 1 yet. So 1/3 would be just a little bit in front of the 0, okay? Because it's not quite 1/2, all right? So it's not going to be halfway in between, just a little bit farther. -3, that's an easy one. All I got to do is find -3 on my number line and plot it. Next one, 2.5. Where would I go to graph 2.5? Okay, it's positive, so I want to go in between +2 and +3. Okay, 0, that's an easy one. I'll go to 0 here on my number line. And then last but not least, -1. Another easy one. All I got to do is go to -1. So now I know exactly my order of my numbers because I look at my number line smallest to biggest, just like that. All right, so what's my smallest number? -3. That one comes first. What's my next number? Very good. -1.5. Next one. -1. Next. 0. Next. 1/3. And last, 2.5. Okay? These are my numbers in increasing order. Remember, increasing means smallest to biggest. All right? So we will finish examples 4 through 7 tomorrow. Okay, so we just completed examples 1 through 3.